Today is Monday, August 11th. We'll tell you about Israel's latest plans for a takeover in Gaza and how the rest of the world is reacting. Also, a deadly shooting targeted the CDC headquarters, what workers there are now demanding. And the U.S. Defense Secretary is under fire for sharing a video calling for women to lose the right to vote. Plus, the Adidas design facing backlash, Instagram's new map feature under scrutiny, and the movie dominating one of the summer's last big box office weekends. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Israel is now facing growing backlash from all sides, except from the White House. It's over the Israeli government's new plan to seize central Gaza, including refugee camps and all of Gaza City. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have sought shelter there. But the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that's also where the terror group Hamas has its strongholds, using civilians as human shields. The UN Security Council held a rare weekend gathering yesterday to meet about Israel's plans. There, the British representative said the plan will only worsen Palestinian suffering, and he got plenty of backing on that. The only countries that supported the Israeli government's offensive were Israel and the U.S. In fact, Netanyahu doubled down, saying the new military offensive will be even bigger than previously announced, saying the goal is not to permanently occupy Gaza, but to free Gaza from Hamas terrorists. But within Israel, the military raised concerns over exhausted soldiers being put in danger. Also, families whose loved ones were taken hostage by Hamas are worried the hostages will be killed in this Israeli assault. And they're calling on Israeli businesses and workers to go on strike and protest. Already, more than 100,000 Israeli people protested over the weekend in one of the largest anti-war demonstrations in recent months. So far, the Israeli government has not said exactly when the new operation in Gaza will begin, just that Netanyahu is hoping to move ahead quickly so it can end the war. To be continued. This week, Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to visit the U.S. for the first time since invading Ukraine. He has a meeting planned in Alaska with President Trump. And Trump says he's optimistic about it, that his instinct says he has a real shot at securing peace for Ukraine. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Putin and Trump cannot meet to dictate terms of any kind of deal for Ukraine without Ukraine being there. Reports say the White House is considering inviting Zelensky to Alaska also, but as of this morning, that hasn't been finalized. The European Union says it should also be involved since the matter involves all of Europe's security. And EU foreign ministers are meeting today to talk about next steps. So far, Russian President Putin still has not agreed to a ceasefire as President Trump and other world leaders have demanded. Instead, Putin proposed the outlines of an agreement to end the war. The thing is, though, his plan would let Russia keep large swaths of Ukrainian territory, something Zelensky says is off the table. As for Trump, he says the potential deal will likely involve, quote, some swapping of territories to the betterment of both sides. Stay tuned. President Trump is now promising to make Washington, D.C. safer and more beautiful than it ever was. He's planning a big announcement about it all today. But he gave some details already over the weekend. For example, Trump said he would evict all people experiencing homelessness from D.C., and he promised to quickly put criminals in jail. Already hundreds of federal law enforcement officers were deployed across the nation's capital to help local police. And Reuters cites officials who say the Trump administration is also planning to deploy the National Guard. The White House says Trump is just working on making D.C. safe again. But Washington, D.C.'s mayor says it's no less safe than it was the last couple of years. In fact, she says violent crime in D.C. is down 26% in the first 7 months of this year as compared to last. And overall crime is down about 7%. It's also not clear what authority President Trump has to act in D.C. without Congress, since right now the White House only controls federal land and buildings in the city. But again, more details are expected to come out later today. Many health officials from around the country are now rattled by a shooting in Atlanta. CDC leaders say a gunman targeted their headquarters on Friday because of grievances over the COVID-19 vaccine. He apparently blamed the shot for making him depressed and suicidal. Reports cite law enforcement who say he first tried to get inside the headquarters, but was stopped by guards. So he opened fire from a pharmacy across the street, killing a police officer. The shooter was also found dead. He had apparently been reaching out for mental health assistance for weeks, but had not made any specific threats. A union representing CDC workers is now demanding federal leaders take a clear stance in condemning vaccine disinformation, saying it would help prevent violence against all scientists. The union is also calling for more security on CDC campuses. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. put out a statement saying no one should face violence while working to protect the health of others. At this point, law enforcement agencies are still working to piece together the details. Once again, millions of Americans are cleaning up from severe weather. This time, several states in the Plains and Midwest got an unprecedented amount of rain that caused flash flooding. Sadly, at least one person died and another was seriously hurt in Nebraska. A prison was also damaged and hundreds of inmates had to be evacuated. Some of the highest rainfall totals were in and around Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where nearly a foot of rain fell. And the last day of the Wisconsin State Fair had to be canceled. Flood watches are still in effect through much of the Midwest this morning. By the way, another prison had to be evacuated in Colorado over the weekend because of one of the largest wildfires in state history. For now, the Leaf Fire has mostly burned through trees and brush about 250 miles west of Denver. More than 1,000 firefighters are battling it now, hoping to keep the flames away from more populated areas. It's one of dozens of large fires burning across the country. More news still ahead, but first, thanks to our sponsor. I've enjoyed coffee for a long time, but since I started getting it from Trade, it's been an extra delight in my mornings. So much so that my husband literally went from never drinking coffee to making it a morning must-have as well. We love getting unique, delicious, and high-quality blends from top roasters around the U.S. And lately, we've been loving cold brew. Cold brew at home used to feel like a whole thing until I tried Trade. Get this, they deliver beans specifically for cold brew, so it tastes just right. Plus, they have the gear to make it super simple. They grind the coffee for me so I can just scoop it into the pitcher with enough water, store it in the fridge overnight, and wake up to something that tastes as delicious and refreshing as the one I could get at my favorite coffee shop. No wonder Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S. for both hot and cold coffee drinkers. For a limited time, Trade is giving 50% off a month of cold brew. That's around 60 cups of cold brew for 50% off when you go to drinktrade.com/newsworthy. That's drinktrade.com/newsworthy to get 50% off, half off 1 month of cold brew. drinktrade.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Tesla's Cybertruck could soon find its place in the U.S. military for target practice. The U.S. Air Force recently ordered dozens of vehicles, including Cybertrucks, for missile launching tests. That's because the U.S. government thinks the futuristic electric trucks might make their way to the battlefield since they're known to be durable. You may remember when the pickup launched back in 2023, Tesla CEO Elon Musk actually said it was built to be apocalypse-proof. So the military will mirror potential real-world situations in a live-fire test. Other vehicles chosen for testing include other pickup trucks, SUVs, and sedans. But only Cybertrucks were called out specifically by make and model. The person who leads America's military shared a divisive video on social media. It was all about the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, aka the CREC. And U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reposted it on X. The video includes Christian pastors saying women should no longer be allowed to vote. It includes a woman saying she submits to her husband. And CREC's founder defended previous comments he made about slaves and their masters having a mutual affection for each other. He also said sodomy should be recriminalized and more. Hegseth captioned the video by saying, quote, "All of Christ for all of life." Since then, at least one progressive evangelical organization has called it disturbing that the defense secretary would amplify views that are considered fringe. But in response, the Pentagon spokesperson said Hegseth was a proud member of a church that's affiliated with CREC and appreciates many of the founders' teachings. Hegseth now hosts a prayer service in the Pentagon once a month. Footwear giant Adidas is now under fire over a new sandal design. Mexican authorities are accusing the company of copying Mexican artisans without asking their permission or crediting their community. They say the new sandal design, called the Oaxaca slip-on, is strikingly similar to traditional indigenous footwear known as huaraches. But the Adidas version are actually made in China. So with that, Mexico's state of Oaxaca is threatening legal action against Adidas. The company responded to say it recognizes the relevance of the criticisms and that it would like to talk about how to repair the damage to indigenous people. The shoe's designer also apologized. In recent years, companies like Zara, Anthropologie, and more have faced similar controversies over certain designs perceived as cultural appropriation. So Mexico's president says her government is making some reforms now to keep Mexican handcrafts from being copied again. A new Instagram feature is also drawing backlash. It's called Instagram Map. It lets people share real-time physical locations on the app and see where other people are too. Instagram's parent company, Meta, says it's a way to make it easier for friends to stay in touch and for people to see some cool spots through the eyes of other users. But privacy experts say they're worried about the amount of data exposed and the potential safety risks. Both Democratic and Republican lawmakers also want it shut down, especially calling it a risk to child safety, making kids more exposed to online predators in real life. But Instagram says users can decide whether to opt in or not. If you do decide to opt in, you can choose which people you want to be able to see your location, and you should be able to turn the feature off at any time. Parents can also turn off access on their kids' accounts. The new map is found at the top of Instagram's message inbox. The movie theaters are filled with sequels and superhero franchises, but it was actually an original horror movie that topped the weekend box office. Weapon, starring Julia Gardner and Josh Brolin, made $70 million on its debut weekend. That's even though the Freaky Friday sequel, Freakier Friday, came out on the same day. And the latest Fantastic Four movie has been in the top spot for weeks. But Weapon's got a lot of buzz because of especially strong reviews. This is actually considered the end of the summer blockbuster season. The year's next most anticipated releases, like the new Avatar and new Wicked, come out in November and December. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, this episode is sponsored by Honeylove. Do yourself a favor and stock your closet with Honeylove's essentials. Whether it's finding that just right bra for every day or getting shapewear that makes you feel great in a dress, Honeylove has it all. And it's all so supportive, comfortable, and stylish. In fact, when I wear anything from Honeylove, I can instantly tell so much thought went into every aspect of the piece. From the feel of the fabric, to the function and extra features, to the fashion and quality. Honeylove's shapewear, for example, it's designed to move with you, so no more pulling it down or up anytime you walk around or dance. It just feels like part of a great outfit. So treat yourself to the most comfortable and innovative bras, shapewear, and tanks on earth and save 20% off site-wide at honeylove.com/newsworthy. Use our exclusive link to get 20% off, honeylove.com/newsworthy. And after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the new standard in bras, shapewear, loungewear, and more with Honeylove. Okay, now back to Money Monday. So your retirement options might be changing soon. President Trump signed an executive order in hopes of letting Americans invest their 401k savings in private equity, real estate, cryptocurrency, and more. The Trump administration says private assets can be more lucrative and can give people more investment choices. But there are also higher risks and higher fees. And critics say the move could put more people in danger of losing a huge chunk of their retirement savings. Either way, the change has the potential to be a pretty big deal, since Americans now have about $12.5 trillion in their 401k and similar plans. And this could get a lot more people into investing. But it's not set in stone just yet. For now, the president's order just tells the Labor and Treasury departments, as well as the SEC, to facilitate the change. That could mean changing some rules and regulations, and those could take months. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your support of the show. We'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.